I'm Matt.
Hey, I'm Steve.
Hey, I'm John.
This is the Sober Friends Podcast. We're here for the sober curious, the new guy, and the old timer. We're here to talk about the stuff anyone looking to live alcohol-free has to face day to day, and how we overcame those struggles. We speak for no 12-step group, but we do try to remain anonymous. You're not alone. This is the Sober Friends Podcast. Emphasis on the new guy. That's why we're here. The most important person listening to the podcast is somebody who is brand new sober. The most important person who walks into a 12-step meeting is that person who takes a 24-hour chip or walking in for the first time with a 1-month chip. That's why we do it, to help out the new guy. But why do we do that? Steve, what's going on?
Hey, Matt. Great to see you tonight.
Good to see you.
Yeah, we do. That's what we do. You know, we've talked about it on here. How sometimes we, especially our Monday night meeting, we've had meetings where we've had 4 or 5 of us, and that's why we do it. We do it so that we're there in case somebody needs help, and we want to make ourselves available. So,
well, not this week. If you're around South Windsor, Connecticut, and you want to come to our Monday night meeting, bring a table with you.
Yeah,
because our little meeting turned into a pretty big meeting. Yeah,
that did. It really has popped a little bit recently. And speaking of newcomers, we've had a bunch of new people come through those doors in the last month. It's been incredible how many new people. And as we will talk about, most of them have been one and dones, a little bit like, high school superstars, one and dones. They come, they show up, they talk. They're really happy to be there. They're happy to talk to us, and then you don't see them. And I always hope that they found different meetings that work for them, but sometimes we'll never know.
I think the chances are probably nil. Yeah. The honest truth is that most new people who come in, or most people who are choosing to get sober, don't stick around.
They don't.
If you've been sober for quite a while, you are the exception. You broke the odds. Congratulations to you. But I'll tell you, it does bum me out to see new people and then they don't show up. Is there anything I can do about that? Have I done something wrong, Steve, if I haven't helped that new person come back?
No, I don't think so. Listen, it's always a personal thing. We had some new people come through, and then this week we had a new person come in who wasn't new to that meeting and wasn't even new to AA, but was coming back. And even that person, who I know so a little bit and I've talked to, is like, I'm not sure they're ready to do what's necessary. They've had a taste of it, and we'll see. I'm not sure that they've gotten rid of that obsession yet, and they can actually put some clean time together. I've talked to them about a retreat that's going on in a couple of weeks. I'm like, hey, if you could put some time together, it might be a good idea for you to come along. A lot of interest. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Have my number. So we'll see. I mean, I always hope. These are people, this happens to be a person that I know and I like a lot. I hope this person finds his way back and decides to do this program. And I know how hard that is. It was hard for me. But it's the only thing that worked for me. So hopefully it'll work for him.
I struggle with understanding somebody who's not ready to get sober coming to a meeting and not sticking around, because for me, going to a meeting for the first time was admitting defeat and was so scary to walk down those stairs to the church basement and see those faces, and I'm one of you. I just don't understand how you go in with half measures. I guess that's just my mindset, that I just don't think that way. I would struggle to relapse just because I don't want to feel that uncomfortable again.
Right.
That was like peak discomfort going into a meeting for the very first time.
Absolutely. I mean, I still remember that feeling, walking in there feeling totally like knowing that I needed to go there, but not wanting to be there at all, right? And I get that feeling. So when somebody says, I talked to this guy, and he said, I don't even want to go to meetings, right? And I get it. And I said, well, I get it. Like I do. I get that you don't want to go to meetings. I didn't want to go to meetings when I first came in. And I don't want to do that either. Like it's just such a tough thing to do. It's really, really difficult for many of us, not for all of us, but for many of us, to get up that courage to walk in those doors and to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm Steve and I'm an alcoholic. Really, really hard. And I agree with you. Like, I don't want to feel that way again. I had to one time, but I certainly don't want to do it again.
No, I don't want to do it again. And it would be tough to build relationships and go back out. Back to the new person and our purpose. What makes it important for people who have some level of sobriety to try and help a newcomer?
Well, for me, and I think for most of us who we reach out and try to help somebody, it always enhances my sobriety, right? So when I reach out to that newcomer and I start being able to interact with that newcomer, it brings me back to where I was. Like, I could see me and most alcoholics, right? I could see me struggling, like their struggle that they had. I could just look at it and see me before I came in and think, oh, this is what's out there for me, right? This is exactly what's out there for me. So it helps me, number one. And then it just, just to help somebody else, to watch somebody come in and get sober and then return to a somewhat of a normal life, maybe a very different life than they had, but what most people could be considered a normal life. It's an amazing feeling. I had one of my sponsees stop over today, and he's going on the retreat with us, and we came in months apart. We came in. He just celebrated 13 years of September. I came in August, and I celebrated 13 years. So we met early, and I brought him out to the Friday night meeting, and then we became friends, and I became a sponsor. And he just went through a horrible medical issue, and he's, feeling better after that. And it's just so nice to be involved with somebody's life like that this guy needed help at the time. At the time, I was just a guy there willing to help him out and to become friends with them and to be able to walk through some of this stuff with them is an amazing feeling.
If you read the big book, it talks about when all else fails, not to get all big book thumper-ish, but there's a point here. When all else fails to try and keep sober, experience with another alcoholic will always work. And the newcomer is no exception. For me, it does remind me where I came from. I don't know, it just brings out the best in me. I like when I see somebody who's new to a meeting I go to regularly that I've not seen before. There is just in general, and I think this is where the topic comes from for me. Just in general, it's become a nice feeling, a drug almost, just to help another person in the span of recovery and even outside the span of recovery where I can be selfless. I get the same feeling that I do helping somebody brand new. To me, there really is no difference if I feel better because it's somebody new who is trying to get sober. It is the same feeling of somebody at work who has the same business problem I have. I would like to reach out and help. Maybe we can find a solution together. I get the same feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Once when you get into this program and you get into recovery, especially our program, and we go through the steps, we start thinking outside of ourselves, right? I mean, I've talked about it. I've said my life early on was transactional. Still can be in certain aspects and at times, but mostly it's not. But I am always willing to help. Like, it is such a high for me. It's such a high to help people that I know nothing about. Like that little bit. I mean it. We talk about holding the door open for somebody. Like, I did it just the other day. I was walking into the library and a woman's walking out and I just stopped and held the door open. And it's amazing. You could just see the look on their face. Like, they're not used to that in this day and age, right? I mean, I see that too. People just walk right in front of you. They pay no attention to you. They're not used to that common courtesy as much. It's out there, but not as much as it used to be. It just feels good. It feels good to do that. It feels good to help people. And then when it comes to the drinking part of it, the alcohol, the recovery part of it, I think everybody, I don't care about the program. I think if you're out there trying to support recovery, then you're probably doing it because either we're doing one of two ways. Either you're trying to make money, right? Which there's plenty of people out there trying to do recovery and make money. Mm-hmm. And if you're not trying to make money, then you're just doing the same thing. You're just trying to help somebody to feel good, right? Everybody's doing that. And I don't care what your community is, whether it's online, whether it's one of these other ways to get sober. It is still to help people. And I think a lot of people feel good about that.
On the online community, places like Instagram, I see people helping each other.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And we're bringing this back to step 12. To me, this is where you're working step 12, bringing the program or sharing the message of recovery of whatever it looks like to that next person so they can pick it up. And even if you're online and you're getting sober on a place like Instagram or TikTok, there still is a lot of, in many ways, in your own way, you're working the 12th step of whatever you're working, that you're spreading the message. This is sort of a universal thing. Well, why is it important to spread the message? Or in another way, try and help somebody who's brand new?
I think you almost need to have experienced the addiction that we experienced, right? Because you said something like, I came into TikTok just a couple years ago, and one of the things that I found very quickly was sober TikTok. And I found a lot of women out there, early sobriety, telling their story, day 1, day 2, day 3, like literally going right through it. And most of them are very good. Like they're very good in front of the camera, and they helped a lot of people out. And that message of getting out there to people is huge. It's huge. And I just think that no matter what it is, they're getting a message out there because they found a bottom, right? And most of them will tell you, I'm giving you this message, just what's worked for me. Maybe you don't need to experience that, right? That's the other thing. Like, I talked to this person the other night, and I know, I'm very good friends with his sponsor, and it's like, you don't need to do this anymore, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing. Just to let them know, like, we don't need to behave this way. We don't need to suffer anymore. So, I don't know. It's really important to be out there and try that just so that they know that recovery is possible.
I was powerless this week. I texted you. I was talking to a customer who wanted to speak to a supervisor. It was 8:45 in the morning, and this woman was blasted. She was spelling words on the app because clearly she couldn't read it. And at first I thought maybe she's got a reading issue, but she's saying things like, it says SUPPORT. And listen, like, support's a pretty easy word. And then I heard she finished talking. And I'm like, oh my God, the woman's blasted. And she got more and more hard to understand as the conversation went on. And I'm trying to walk her through how to use an app. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to do this? Right. There's no way a woman this blasted is ever going to be able to figure this out. And I even sent her a document. Like, she is less coherent as this conversation goes on. And it's not 9 o'clock yet in the morning. And I only talk to East Coast people. So I guess it would be worse if they were on the West Coast, but that's a sorry state of affairs. I can't reach out to her in my role. And it frustrated me. And you were helpful enough to pull me out of that when you're saying she doesn't realize she doesn't have to live this way.
Right.
And I wasn't thinking it that way. I was thinking through of, I don't want to spend 40 minutes with this woman.
Right.
And I talk to a lot of drunk people. A lot of people who want to speak to, who want to escalate are drunk.
Right. Yeah,
I
can
in
imagine.
The morning, it's not abnormal.
I can imagine in a customer service type role, and especially a management position, like, you're getting a lot of those people. Yeah, you know, back in my day, you would have gotten me. I'm not kidding you. I would have escalated it up for sure. But it's hard. It's really, really, really hard to witness that, whether it's in person or, like you said, on the phone. From our perspective, like, you just know the suffering this person, and they don't know it. That's this for the most part, and we don't know. We don't know whether this woman knows it or not. But just to be that way at, like I said, 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning, it's heartbreaking. Is what it is. It's heartbreaking to me. I
was not a morning drinker, and thank God I got sober before I got to that point. Yeah, that's a possibility. Just because, okay, well, I wasn't that bad and wasn't a morning drinker. That doesn't mean it wouldn't have progressed to that point.
Yeah, I wasn't either. I don't know why. And I mean this. I drank in the morning, but it wasn't because I was like, I drank in the morning when I was young because I wanted to start the day. But when I was really bad, when I was alcoholically drinking, for some reason, I never morning drank. For the most part, I had a long drive to work. I had a 55-mile drive to work one way, and during my worst of my years. And I didn't want to do that. Like, I always drank coming home. Like, on that ride home, I drank. But I didn't drink going in. And I'm not sure why. But I never got there either. And I'm happy. I'm happy that I didn't wake up thinking. Usually I woke up feeling like crap, like a lot of us do. I felt emotionally and physically like crap. And I was never, the old hair of the dog person. I never hit that. I never figured that out. I don't even think I ever tried it, even when I was younger. It's just whatever it was. I just never. I was lucky. I guess I was lucky, or whatever you might think. Yeah, that it wasn't me.
You might have gotten there, though.
Absolutely. Listen, and I can get there again, right? I mean, we talk about going out again, and trust me when I tell you, there's lots of yets out there, right? For me, that's one thing I've never done yet, but does not mean that if I picked up and went out that I wouldn't end up there, because I see it becoming a more possibility for me because I don't work. I don't, I still work a little bit, but I don't drive. Like, I could easily see me waking up in the morning thinking, screw life. I'm just going to start drinking as soon as I wake up. So no, it's not something I want to even think about trying.
If I had beer when I was in college, in that period of time, I started drinking late morning because it was an exciting thing that I actually had beer. So if I actually had beer around and nothing to do, I would start drinking in the morning.
Yeah.
I grew out of it later on because it wasn't socially acceptable, and I knew how tired I would get.
Right. Yeah, me too.
But I had pushed it off at that point because I won't be functional. I have to function first before I get the opportunity to drink. But it is possible. I would say that probably would really accelerate if I went back to drinking, because there were some rules I had in place for myself so I couldn't be an alcoholic. Well, I've already admitted I'm an alcoholic, so what's the point of having the rules after the fact? I think about that a lot, that if I went back out to drinking, it would not be controlled. It would be, well, screw it. What's the point now?
Right.
I might as well just do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Because I know I have a problem.
Yeah, that was my point about morning drinking. Like, if I went out, like, that would be the point. Like, why bother, right? I mean, I certainly know today, I know from being in the program twice that I'm an alcoholic, that I can't control my drinking once I start. So why try? Like, absolutely, why try? Why fake it? Why lie to myself? I wouldn't be able to lie to myself if I went back out, right? The first time, I didn't know better. The second time, I lied to myself and said, oh, you can do this. I couldn't do that a third time, right? I couldn't do that. I would just know, like, hey, you're just deciding to drink. So there would be no reason to have rules or anything like that. So, so that's not what I want. And that's why we help the newcomer, because, again, just like we were talking, when this newcomer, if you have a chance to talk to them, it brings you back to that spot without you having to drink, right? So you get to experience that by their pain and suffering without having to go through that yourself,
Part of it is I learned that I'm supposed to help other people. So there is some duty to it, that you get to a certain point and you've been told enough times you're supposed to help somebody who's new. If you don't do it, I feel some guilt. So in some ways I do it just out of, this is what I'm supposed to do. I follow the instructions and I do that. Otherwise, I almost feel like I'm doing something wrong if I don't. That's been conditioned. It is also really helpful. And I sometimes have to get my head around things the right way, because I may see that new person not being receptive, or see those signs that, I remember a guy who came in, we saw him like one time, and he was bitching and moaning about something. His first share is bitching and moaning, and there was a lot of why his drinking wasn't his fault. And I didn't think I'm ever going to see this guy again. I never did. And still, you got to reach your hand out to that person.
Absolutely.
One, you never know. But to me, helping the new person is being a role model. I look at, if I'm somebody who has some sobriety and I've got my shoulders upright, because you can walk in and tell, and many times you can spot a new person and you can spot somebody who has some sobriety. I want to be a good role model. I don't want to be a fake person where, well, that's a great share that you're making, but when your hand is down, you act like an ass. So this isn't even worth it. It's all fake. I don't believe in many ways that they said they haven't drunk in 20 years because that's not physically possible for anybody to do. And now I see it is all bullshit because I see how that person's acting. That's important to me.
Yeah, I think it's important to most people. Although there are people, like you said, who don't act well, even though they have long-term sobriety. But I too. Listen. I just want to put my best foot forward. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I was given a gift. Okay. It was tried to be given to me in 1995 and early on in my sobriety. I wasn't ready to accept it. But I was able to come back and get a gift that is invaluable to me. It really is. It's invaluable to me, right? We talked about it that I didn't have a great relationship. I had a somewhat of a strained relationship with my son, who I just got off the phone with, actually FaceTime with 2 grandkids. Just a great giggly conversation. I look at that relationship and like, that's not available to me without this program. That was given to me as a gift, and not just my drinking, like, just the way I have to, live my life, like, so when he calls me up, and I've done it before, when he's called me up before, hey, can you come down and watch the kids or watch one of the kids? We got some things we got to do. Yeah. And I got to drive an hour down there, and I might go down there and spend 3 or 4 hours, but it's a gift for me to be able to do that. I just feel like I have to repay that gift and pass that gift, pay it forward. The old Dunkin' Donuts line, right? You pay for the person in back of you so that they just, you just do something nice. How many times have you heard those stories,
Oh, yeah.
People go in and they buy somebody's meal behind them just to be nice. This is it, but this is different because this could be life-saving. Right? We've talked about my friend, my wife's friend, who she went to grammar school and high school with, who decided she didn't want to live anymore and literally planned it and executed a plan to drink herself to death. And she did that while her son moved in with her, and her son went through it day in and day out. And I just can't think of anything more horrifying than that.
Think of the potential as well. We know these people who are 30, 40 years sober, and they have sponsored half of the people on this bank of the Connecticut River. Lots of people. You need to think through that guy who looks like he's hurting, who might not make it, if you reach out that hand and get them to one more meeting or get them on a path of where they get some tools for sobriety, what if that person becomes the next guy to sponsor half of the people on this side of the Connecticut River, right? And those spider webs that go out that catch that next person? Like, there is that possibility. You helping that newcomer has made an impact on hundreds of people down the road.
Yep. Absolutely. And the truth is, we don't even know sometimes, right? We don't know that happens. We reach out. Listen, I've talked to dozens of alcoholics, dozens of guys. I've talked about it before. I've had, probably 12 to 15 guys come through my house, meet with me in my basement, start doing some type of work. And most of them I don't know from the hair. Most of them I truly don't even remember their names, right? They didn't stick around long enough. So maybe they're out there somewhere, just like we just said. Maybe the newcomer came into our meeting and went out. For some reason, our meeting didn't work for them and has found another meeting. And you're right, they're going to become one of those people. And the fact that we didn't screw them up or scare them off, we did our part, right? And I'll tell you about that Monday night meeting. It's a great meeting. Mm-hmm. It's very welcoming, right? Anytime a new person comes in there are multiple people, whether it's male or female, reaching out, saying hi, introducing themselves. themselves, welcoming the newcomer to the meeting, really trying to make them feel as comfortable as possible. And that's all we can do. And I take a lot of pride in that with that Monday night meeting. We do a really, really nice job with that. And maybe that's why we've been getting new people. Now, again, if they would stick around, it'd be great. But we'll see. We can't make them stick around. So
if you build that culture too, I mean, I think of the people who are there. And it feels sometimes like, as an aside, it feels sometimes like it's pulling teeth to get people to share because it can be a quieter meeting. It's more introverted, the people there. Right. So it could go the other way where I don't want to go to that meeting because everybody looks at their shoes. Or if you get a couple people who challenge themselves to try and be open with others, the others will follow through. So if you're helping the new guy, you also might be helping that guy in the corner, regardless of how much sobriety he has, might be a little introverted or doesn't want to speak, doesn't want to reach out their hand because maybe they don't feel good about themselves or maybe they're shy, and you influence that person to reach their hand out. Yeah. Now you've reached out at another level and you're helping somebody who already has sobriety. And part of helping the newcomer is sometimes you help the old timer too. There's nothing that says you can't spread the message back to people who know all about this and improve their sobriety.
Yeah, not only that, I mean, we both know from experience that some days we walk into meetings not wanting to be there, feeling like shit, feeling like, what am I doing here tonight? I don't want to be here.
About 75% of the time for me.
Yeah, and then we walk out of there because of some newcomer showing up, right? And a newcomer sharing. We have a fairly new woman in that group, and a few weeks ago she shared some stuff about her grandmother passing away, and it was one of the best shares ever. I was just like to myself, thank you so much. It told me so much about this person that I didn't know before, and I walk out of those meetings feeling so good.
Yep.
And again, it happens all the time. I always say it, like, there's lots of times, I think a lot of us, I get up on a Monday night or a Friday night or whatever night it might be. Those are my two really regular meetings. And, sometimes they do. It's the same people mostly. And sometimes like, oh, do I feel like going to this meeting? But I go. I always go. And I always say, I always feel better coming out of any meeting I go to, regardless of how I felt going in. I always feel better coming out. And that includes the days where I would show up and there'd be 4 people there and I'd be pissed off because there's only 4 people there. But something, like we had 20. We had 20 Monday, including some fairly new people, a couple people, coming back.
I saw somebody who I'm friendly with that I would see at another meeting in Vernon. She lives generally in my neighborhood.
Okay.
And even though she generally lives in my neighborhood, I don't ever see her. But she showed up, and it was just nice to see her.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I'm like, you live down the street, and I never see you. That's an indictment of me, of how I do not want to get off of the acreage that my property lives on.
Yeah. So.
But like things like that are great.
They really are. And actually, it gives you an idea. You can look at that and say, you know something? I know this person lives close by. I never see them. Maybe I need to make a change, right? Yeah. Again, it's one of those things. Maybe I need to make a change and get out and walk the dogs in my neighborhood more, right? And so I'm out there. It's one of the things where, I have a dog and we walk, and
I have to walk them in the opposite direction because I have my route and I'm comfortable with that route.
Yeah.
And I need to go the other way.
Right.
And I don't ever want to do that.
No, I get it. But it's like everybody in my neighborhood knows my dog because she's off leash, and if we get close, like, she'll go over and say hi to everybody, And it's like, so it's just a great way to get to know people and just be able to get familiar with them and let people know that, hey, we're out here, we live out here, we're part of the neighborhood. So it's always fun to see people. I love seeing people that I know at meetings. Like, there's not a lot of neighbors, but I have a neighbor right down the street. One of my good friends is in the rooms, and just by happenstance, right? We live on the same street, no other reason. And it's nice to know that, right down the street, there's somebody. If I ever needed to talk or walk, I could literally walk down the street and have this conversation with this person.
I reached out my hand to Timmy. You can find him, I think it's like episode 38. He shared his story, and he was less grumpy on that episode than he typically is, but he was classic Tim this week, where he was not in a good place, very grumpy, not like funny, like I don't want to be. He's like, my head's splitting open. And I made a point of going over and saying hi, like, what's going on? How you feeling? And Dave went over and said, why didn't you call me? You pick up that damn phone and you call somebody.
I said that, yeah.
I've had some tough times at work. I'm not picking up the damn phone. I don't think of doing it, so I'm as guilty, but I made sure to go over there because I want him okay.
No, me too. I said to him going out, and he was walking out the door, and we were still talking, a bunch of us, and I said to him, when you're feeling like shit, you can pick up the phone and call me.
Yep.
And I get it, like we all do. And and I understand Timmy. Timmy was in his own soup, and, it's hard. It's hard. And I think Timmy talks to enough people during the day. He does on a regular basis. But when he gets really out of sorts like he was, I think it's hard. And it's hard for me, too. Some of that worst stuff, when I'm in my worst time, I'm not picking up the phone. I need to sort of back off a little bit, and then I'll pick up the phone and maybe call somebody.
I get into that place where I just want to retreat. So I guess that's a bit of isolation. So part of spreading that message and part of helping the newcomer or helping somebody else is pick up the damn phone and call somebody. And I'm saying this as somebody who's so guilty of doing the wrong thing. I always feel better when somebody has a problem and they call me. Just wow, you called me. You felt like you wanted to share this with me? Yeah. Why me? No, so I always feel good there.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I always feel good when people email the show, matt@soberfriendspod.com, or I get an IM at soberfriendspod on Instagram. I try and respond to everybody just because I feel good. Somebody's sharing either I liked what you said, or I'm having this problem, or I was having this problem 6 months ago. I can't believe I'm still sober. This is how things are. Great. And it doesn't matter who you are. I have seen people who are struggling and people who are telling me these stories. I'm like, wow, your life is pretty incredible. The things that you've accomplished. I feel a little jealous of the things that you're doing in life, and it's great to hear. So we'd like to hear from you. Tell us your story about how you helped the newcomer, or what is it about when you were new that you remembered where somebody came over and made you feel better because they knew you were new, or you got a story where somebody was a prick. I can certainly remember those stories. They happened to me. And if you like the show, I would love for you to go over to Apple, 5-star review, tell everybody how great this show is so we can help the next person. Steve, thanks for being here.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me.
All right, we will see everybody next week. Bye, everybody. You made it this far into the podcast. That tells me you're a pretty big fan. If you like what we do and you find value in the podcast, consider a donation at buymeacoffee.com/soberfriendspod. Your donation keeps us on the air to help out the new guy and helps us defray some of our costs. If you find value in our podcast, please consider a donation at buymeacoffee.com/soberfriendspod.